chips are made.
So which would you say is the perfect variety of potatoes to use then?
Well, Maris Piper, as we can see, these are the favourite for fish and chip shops for frying. Nice, big, bold potatoes. Perfect, Maris Piper potatoes, perfect for frying.
So I see you've got them on a pallet, so what reason is that?
Well, they're on the pallet. It's quite simple because we want airflow underneath the potatoes. We want them away from the wall so they're frost free. There's no cold coming from the wall onto the potatoes. We never ever store them more than 5 high. Potatoes, you need to handle them like you would eggs, so you don't have any bruising on them for frying. They won't come out in the final product.
Okay. So Greg, what do you look for in a potato? I mean, how do you know what's a good potato and what's a bad potato?
Well, we mentioned earlier the variety of the potatoes that we use, Maris Piper. That's a nice, clean, bold potato. It's firm,
yeah.
Whereas if you look at this one here, this one is soft and it's starting to sprout, you can just see in here. So that's an older potato. It won't give a good chip, you know, and that's what we're looking at for the final product. We want a good, nice potato that's clean and it's going to give a good chip. And you'll get that from a Maris Piper. We're just going to test this now for starch in the potato that will turn to sugar in the cooking process. It will caramelise. So we can do that now just by inserting one of these strips from Drywite into the potato, as so, and just holding it on there. Okay.
So that will test the sugar content.
It'll test the potato for starch, and the starch turns to sugar in the cooking process, which will caramelise. So there we are. That's perfectly acceptable. That is still in a light green colour. Compare that on there. Okay. So that's treated. So we can use that. Just treat it with Drywite.
Okay. So Greg, you mentioned the starch doctor. When would you use that?
We use it at certain times in the year when you have the extremes in weather, i.e. too cold, and we will use starch doctor. Basically, that eliminates starch before it goes into the cooking process.
And how would you use starch doctor?
You just use this, I mean, with the manufacturer's guidelines. There we are, okay. And all the directions for use are on the back of there of how to use it.
And it's important, obviously, to follow
the guidelines of the manufacturer's Drywite's recommendations, as with all their products, as with the Drywite products as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've shown me how to check for starch and to get the best potato,
Yeah.
but what do you do next?
Well, we're getting into rumbling now. Have here the potato peeler. Very important piece of kit. Quite dangerous actually, so it needs to be operated by somebody that has been trained in using this machine. This is where you can make or lose a lot of money, or your profit can literally go down the drain.
Right.
And that's the last thing you want. We'll turn the machine on. We'll load them one bag at a time into the machine. I'll have to talk up a bit. Once they're in there, then we'll turn the water on, and then most importantly, what we're going to do, we'll time them, and we'll give them 1 minute initially, and then we'll stop the machine, look at them, and then we'll give her an extra half a minute only if they need them. Okay? Get these down. Okay, so this is what the potatoes look like after they've been rumbled for a minute. There's still a little bit of work to be done on them,
Right.
which will take a little bit of time, but there is not the significant amount of weight loss that you'd want. You know, these are going to produce the right amounts of chips, and what we're going to get to by peeling them slowly and taking off all the imperfections, we will get to the perfect chip, which is what you want. We need quality at all times to ensure that the customers keep returning to our place for the perfect chip. Yeah, look, getting off all the imperfections, and then these potatoes then will be ready for chipping. And then once they're chipped, as we'll see later, we're going to be frying them.
So do you prepare enough for one day only?
We'll prepare enough potatoes for a day, but out of the potatoes that we use for a day, we'll only chip enough per shift, if you like. So for lunchtime, for the opening shift of lunchtime, we'll do enough chips just for that period of time, and then later on in the day we'll chip some more for the evening. They need to be chipped and dry whited up to an hour before you fry them. They need to be soaked in the solution for 15 minutes. You have to follow all of their guidelines to get the perfect product. So here we have the potatoes peeled. Okay, we're going to go on to the chipping process now with them. What we need to do, we must switch the chipper on first. Okay, so turn that on. We've got a safety cutout switch there. Switch it on, and then what you do, you load it very carefully. Potatoes, load them into the machine. Again, this piece of machinery should only be operated by somebody who's been fully trained in it. There are our chips there, they've come out. So what we're going to do with them now, we're going to wash them. We're going to get rid of all the starch from them, and then we're going to treat them with Drywite.
So what happens if you make too many chips?
Well, if you get any chips over using Drywite, what happens is you can actually keep them for up to 48 hours, but the suggested method at the end of the evening would be to chill them down from one day to the next.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to wash all the starch off these now. Can you see it coming out, look in the white form there? See that there? That's all the starch. Okay, and starch will caramelise in the cooking process.
Right, so you've shown me how to peel the chips and chip the chips. So what do you do now?
Well, next we're going to move on to the dry white potato preparation.
Right.
Okay. So what we've got here, we've got 3 bags of chipped potatoes.
Right.
We're going to use a dry white measure. It's 2 cups of dry white and 2 buckets of water will cover 25-gallon drum with 3 bags of potatoes in.
Right.
It's as simple as that. Okay, so what we're going to do is measure the solution into the water, into the cup, and then add that to the water rather. Okay, so that's that. Then we're going to top that up with water, and we're going to do that twice. We'll recap: 3 bags of chips, 2 buckets of water, and 2 of the measured cupfuls of dry white to cover them. Wait for that to top up now, and we can add that one to a solution. There is a rim on there that you can see, and if I just add that on slowly. Okay.
Yeah.
That's one. Then we'll do another one. The same. Then what we're going to do, we're going to leave the chips soaking in the water for 15 minutes, and that's crucial that you get that right. No more, no less.
So what happens if you make too many chips then?
Well, if you make too many chips, what you can actually do with them, you can actually, because they're dried already, you're never ever going to put them back into water. They'll last for 48 hours once they've been dry whited correctly, but you must follow the process that we talked about.
So really what you're saying is you never have to waste another chip then?
No, you maximise your profit using dry white. You never throw a chip away, because once they've been dry whited, as we've talked about, just cover those over to the top. You'll never ever throw the chip away again, but you must use the guidelines that we've talked about. And what you have to do is you have to soak them for 15 minutes and dry them for at least 1 hour before you fry them.
Right.
And you'll see later on when we cook them that it's crucial that you get them as dry as possible. We give them 15 minutes that we talked about using the timer,
Okay.
and then we dry them up to 1 hour before we use them. It's an important part of the day. Your first job when you come into the fish and chip shop in the morning, potato preparation, and using the process and the guidelines that Drywite has said. All the methods that they are laid out on the back. Okay? Right, we've dealt with potato preparation, we've dealt with chip preparation. We're going to move on to batter now. The chips are soaking for 15 minutes, so we're going to use this time to demonstrate how to make batter.
Right.
And the best way to do that is using cold water. What we do, we refrigerate the water overnight to get it down to a very, very cold temperature. It's no good trying to make batter with water
Why is
straight
that
out
then?
of the tap, because it won't lift, it won't give you the aeration in the batter, which will make your batter lift in the cooking process. You'll end up with a flat batter that will look not very pleasing to the eye. So we've got some cold water here that we refrigerated down overnight. Add that into the bucket. Then what we're going to do, always put the water in first and then add the flour to the water, so you don't end up with lumpy batter. So just mix it in slowly, a little bit at a time, okay? Mixing all of the time so you get the aeration into the batter. And what you need to do, you need to mix the batter at least half an hour before you're going to use it, and keep it refrigerated all the time. Get into the right consistency. So as you can see there, look, you're knocking out all the lumps in the batter. Okay. And then what my dad taught me to do was, years ago, if you just count in your head to 50, mixing it continually, it's there or thereabouts at the end. See all the aeration getting into it now?
Yeah.
All the bubbles. That'll make the batter lift. What I'm going to do with that now, see look, there's lots of bubbles in there.
Yeah.
Okay. What I'm going to do now is refrigerate it, and we'll move back onto the chips, because I would imagine by now 10-15 minutes is gone, and that'll be ready for midday. In about half an hour's time that'll be ready to start frying. So I'm going to put that back into the fridge. Okay. So we've finished our batter now, we're going to move back onto chips. What we're going to do now is drain the chips. And we're going to let them drain, and they need to be drained up to an hour before we use them, an hour being the minimum amount of time that we're using them. And just to recap there, what we've done, we've used, for a 25 gallon drum which holds 3 bags of chips, we've used one of these to one of those, and we've done that twice. Okay? Now then, what we've got here at our place, we use a thicker cut chip.
Why do you use a thicker one then?
Well, they're thicker because they'll absorb far less fat, and if they're drier, again, what will happen is it cuts the cooking time down considerably, therefore you're using less gas, so you're more profitable. They're quicker to cook because they're dry. If the customer's waiting, you can cook them quicker, it cuts down their waiting time. And then the most important thing, from a health point of view, they don't absorb as much fat because they're dry. Okay, I'll demonstrate later on. You can peel the outer layer off with fluffy, nice fluffy potato in the middle, and it's a lot healthier product. Right, we've got the dry whited and drained chips here now, and we're going to fry them. We've talked about the reasons why we dry them. You must get your oil management absolutely spot on. There's no point in going to all this length of preparation if you're going to put your chips into something that's not been cleaned and filtered. So the temperature's correct now, I'm going to put those in. As you can see there's hardly any steam coming off those chips. Okay, yeah. So we've put the chips in, we've left them for approximately 2–2.5 minutes. And all we need to do now is just lift the lid very quickly and just lift them around the pan, and by doing that they'll disperse evenly in the pan and cook. They won't stick together, they'll cook nice and evenly. The next time we lift that lid should be when they're cooked. Just squeeze the biggest one, because if the biggest one is cooked, you know the rest of them will be. So what we're going to do now is, they're cooked now, we're going to get those out. Just give them a little tap, any excess fat off, and into the chip box. And they're being drained as well in there. There you go. That is the perfect product there. You can see they're the correct temperature. They've been fried at the right temperatures. And the most important thing now, when you peel these, you should be able to peel them, look, and see how I can peel the skin off them?
Yeah.
Okay? Because they've been cooked and dry whited, and that's exactly what it does. It dries them white, and you can peel the skin off, but better than that, when you open them up, look, see how nice and fluffy they are inside, look.
Yeah.
That's full of potato, and the potato hasn't absorbed the fat. All that outer skin there, look, that you put peeling off, the potato inside is not full of fat. That's a good, healthy product, that is.
Ready to serve.
Ready to serve, perfect.